Cool.
Alrighty. So, everyone listening in, appreciate everybody listening in from the Warrior House podcast land. We have a fantastic feature today. On the phone today and on video, if you're seeing it on video, we have the distinct pleasure of talking to the head coach of the Wayne State fencing program, Andy Tulleners. Andy, thank you so much for joining us. How are you today?
Good. Thank you for having me.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and we appreciate that you were able to take some time out of your day to come and talk to us. So we'll jump right into it. Uh, you joined the Wayne State fencing program just recently in October 2023. How's your experience been so far?
So far, it's been very good. Especially starting a program right in the middle of the season, that can have challenges. So far, I think between the team, the coaching staff that was already established here in the administration, it's been a very smooth transition from my perspective. It's been a good experience. I've really enjoyed it.
So on that, I guess what is it? I'm already going off script a little bit. We do this a lot. What's that like getting kind of a call or like maybe a hey, heads up, there's something available in the middle of the season? How does that change things for you?
Um, I think the big focus was I came in understanding that I needed to really get to know the team and understand the team dynamic and team culture first, and then focus on, I guess, making sure that I could grow that and develop that for the future. So that was really more of a priority than trying to turn on wins or anything like that. I think you prioritize the right atmosphere on the team, and the wins will come. And so that was really the objective.
And that's got to be
Okay.
very different coming into, you're coming into a team that you don't know yet, and some of them are already competing overseas.
You're right, right. Well, in some ways, I kind of had a secret weapon going in. I had two things really working for me. One, our assistant coach, Svetlana Shevchenko, has been absolutely fantastic. I think I had a chance to talk to her a little bit even before I started my first day. And right off the bat, while we didn't know each other, we knew a lot of the same people from the fencing community. And so we both heard a lot of very good things about each other, and very quickly realized our view of how we approach the sport and team really lined up. So that's been incredibly beneficial. The second thing is, maybe a lot of people may not know, at one point or another, I tried to recruit almost a quarter of the team that currently exists on the roster. So I knew quite a few people coming in the door already, and that helped.
And you knew what they were all about. You knew what you were getting into, and you're just coming in. At least, if you have a good amount of the knowledge about some of the athletes on this team, you kind of get a sense of what that culture of the whole team might be like. Is that pretty accurate?
Yes, yes. And then also having been in the sport in this region for so long and having competed formally against Wayne State, I've known a lot of the alumni in the community for decades. So you kind of come in, you already kind of have a sense from knowing the alumni or seeing the team operate over the years, what that team looks like, and then just being able to kind of flow into that and then look for, hey, where can we modify or make slight tweaks and make them small improvements, and then where do you work and develop the team and grow the team, get their buy-in, and you keep growing culture.
Well, let's talk a little bit more. So you mentioned you were at Cleveland State before, and I actually was doing a little bit of research on you, seeing that you were, coach of the year in a lot of those years. So when you come over to a school like Wayne State, who has a pretty rich history when it comes to fencing,
Mm-hmm.
just off the bat, like in the 90 years of competition, I think 92 years, you're only the seventh coach. So I mean,
Right.
that rivals that of like a Syracuse basketball program who's had like a coach for almost 50 years, so that's pretty impressive in of itself. But when you talk about Wayne State as a destination, how big of a factor was it for you to find a program that had that rich history?
I've told members of the team this. I think I've told some members of the athletic staff. When I was looking, I really, at this point and where I was in fencing and coaching, I really looked at one school that I would have considered moving to, and that was Wayne State, and that was it. I know the community, the fencing community. I know alumni. I used to travel up here for work when I did engineering work before, so there's a familiarity with the program, with the city. I don't think I would have imagined going anywhere else. It was a move that was basically you're moving from one home to a new home. And this is
Sticking right in the Midwest too.
right, right. It was a conscious decision. It's I'm not looking to go somewhere else. This is, my intent is I'll retire here. That's what I would like to see, and hopefully I can leave the same kind of legacy as a Gil Petza. I can leave the same kind of legacy as a Donashi, where people just look back and say, wow, we were inspired by this person and they grow the program and they could be proud of being on that team. So
Music to our ears to hear that somebody wants to stick with Wayne State for the long haul. Because I mean, you can see it, probably hear it from us. We're right there with you, and just it's something we're very passionate about.
right, right. And it's neat too. One of the factors that played for me was, coming into the university, you see there's a new president, there's a new athletic director, there's a new vision for the culture. And I've seen cultures that were not as healthy, and I saw the direction where this is going. I said, I want to get on that ride. Um, but you also have a lot of coaching staff that have been here many, many years, and a lot of people in the department have been here many years. That's a decision. And I mean, I can feel that decision when I walk down the halls. I know people are here because they want to be here. And for me, that matters a lot because you're working with people that are as passionate as you are. They want to be here. And I'm excited to be part of that.
Absolutely. And we're happy that you're here too, coach. And that's music to our ears to say, hey, you want to be here, you want to be in for the long haul. But despite all of Wayne State's history of fencing, if I had to bet, a lot of sports fans, a lot of our listeners probably haven't given much of a thought to the sport of fencing, probably beyond popping it on TV when the Olympics are on. Could you just, real basic, could you explain the basics of the three disciplines in fencing, epee, foil, and saber, and how are those competitions scored? Because I've looked at fencing recaps for since we started this podcast, and it can be a little bit confusing even to me. So maybe just explain a little bit of that for us.
Sure. So, kind of maybe what I'll do is try to break it down by the
Yeah,
weapon groups a little bit, and then how they score it separately.
sure.
So you got the three weapons: foil, epee, and saber. They each have different ways to score as far as where you can score on the body, and then how you go about scoring. So, for example, saber, as you think of more your cavalry saber, if the target area is waist up, and there's a referee who has to determine who has the right to score by who creates the attack. Is the best way to describe it. And then foil is just the torso. So originally that was more of a training weapon. And again, there's a referee that has to determine who has a right to score. Only one person can score at a time. And then epee is more like your original dueling sword, and the shape of the weapon is again different than foil and saber. And the entire body's target area. And in this case, both opponents can score at the same time. And so that makes it a little different as far as the tactics. Saber's very aggressive, foil's a little bit more offense and defense, and typically epee is a lot more defensive. As far as how they're scored, for collegiately, everything is a 5-point bout. So whoever gets to 5 first wins the bout. Or in the case of epee, if you're at 4-4 and you keep turning double lights on, you wait till someone gets a single light. Or, and in foil specifically, and epee specifically, there's a clock of 3 minutes of fencing. If you run out of that 3 minutes of time, if the score is tied, you flip a coin and you fence 1 more minute to sudden death. Whoever wins the coin toss, if no one scores, they win that match. If someone does score, they win the match. And if you run out of 3 minutes of fencing and someone's ahead, you could win a match 1-0 by time. Saber does not have a clock. It is so fast, they don't keep a clock for it. So hopefully that helps a little bit.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, and just as we started the recording here, we were kind of going back and forth a little bit, and I mentioned that I went to the Danosi. I never really got the true pronunciation on that, but that was the first time I've ever been to an in-person or seen live fencing happen. Like Sangster said, like a little bit on TV, but I didn't really get the whole gist of really what was going on. It didn't look like jousting, essentially, to be frank. But like I was mentioning, when I got there, I saw these little squares on the ground, and all the fencers were hooking up to like what looked like a coil, almost like a string that would stay attached to them. I'm like, what is that? So as you were talking about some of the lights, that just has to do with it registers. If someone gets touched, there's a register that happens, and that's what makes those lights go.
Correct. So the fencers have essentially there's what's called a body cord that attaches to the weapon in their hand, and it goes through their jacket and out the back, and that attaches to that cord you talked about. That's the reel. And from there, those are attached to a machine so that if you're fencing saber, for example, and you hit your opponent in target area, the referee can see a light come on and knows that that person hit. If it's in foil, there's And in both foil and saber, there's what's called a lame. It's a mesh fabric that uses to register hits that are on target. So saber, it's just turning lights on. That's it. And foil, you have an off target. So it could be a colored light or a white light, and either one will stop that action. And the referee has to make a decision on what they see. In epee, it's just the colored lights come on. There is no off target because you can hit the whole body. But either way, those lights help the referee determine how to award touches.
Sure. And that was the other thing I think I was gathering as I was in person again, is like, just because, a light would go off, there still seems to be a little bit of, like you said, who has the right to score or who actually made a move in order to get a score. It's not necessarily once you get a good tap that the point's done.
Right. And that comes with training and experience for the referees. Epee, it's a little bit more of a free for all or a duel. The other weapons, the referees are really looking for, hey, who's actually making something happen? Who's creating it? Or if I'm attacking you and you block me, you've taken away my right to score, and then you're allowed to hit me back, basically. That's kind of a simplistic way to explain it. And so so one of our former head coaches, Maestro Jersey Rads, he's actually back assistant coaching as a volunteer this year, which is very exciting because he was here for 30 years. He mentioned to me that the correct pronunciation is Danoshi. Danoshi, yes. Okay. He was very specific, so I'll trust Maestro.
Well, that's good to know. That's an annual thing I know that happens. Very kind of a fun event to go to and just experience. So talking about all the tactical stuff, I love like in the details and the weeds about how this sort of stuff works. But from a coaching perspective, kind of stepping a little bit back and looking at the sport as a whole, doing your best to kind of compare to some of the other sports maybe that you've come across, or other coaches that you've talking to. What challenges and opportunities do you see in coaching a collegiate fencing program?
So I've coached at a club level as well as obviously collegiate level. I think for me personally, there's a significant difference in the approach from club versus collegiate. Collegiate has a very specific season, whereas club teams, you're kind of just training someone year in, year out, right? And personally, from my perspective, I like having that beginning and that end of a season. I like to have a clear plan and a clear target that you're working towards. And then there's also some downtime. I think that's very important as too, where some clubs, there's really no downtime. You're just doing it constantly. So I do like that difference. I think it matters. So that's, for me personally, I think that's the most significance. And I personally prefer collegiate coaching over club coaching for that reason.
Got it.
So we're familiar with several defenders on the team. Keep seeing their names pop up: Ahmed Al Sayed, Ayad Maroof, Ludovica Mancini, Vika Shevchenko. Who are some fencers that we should be keeping our eyes on going into Midwest regionals?
Some additional fencers to look for is Reika Galfalvi. She's a first year. It's kind of neat watching her in practice. She does okay in practices, but she's a competition fencer is how I describe it. So she gets into competition, she turns it on. Another one is Salma Tarek. She's really done a great job this year for us. And then also on the men's side, you have Ethan Leung, who's done a nice job this year of slowly adapting his style. He's worked a lot with Coach Lana Shevchenko, and so he's modified his style, but I think it's improved his game certainly. So those are probably some of the people I would keep an eye out for. I'm excited about seeing what they do, but also with so many freshmen this year, I'm excited to see how they learn from our regionals as we move forward to next season. Especially being able to put together a full season, a full plan for that season, and what that's going to look like.
We do talk about that a little bit, a lot in some of the other sports. Basketball is kind of one that we really gravitate towards just because, there's so many games that are going on. There's a number of different players. The biggest thing is like when you see a lot of the, freshmen and sophomore that are contributing and like getting, we say like meaningful minutes. So in this case, like getting meaningful bouts and putting out like, really good performances, getting maybe fencer of the week or like, a winning record, anything like that, good touch differential. Seeing that kind of stuff is really exciting because we know that years to come, we're going to still have a very high quality fencing program.
Right. So I guess kind of maybe help me out. What is it kind of your question that you're
Oh, no, there was no question. There was just kind of going along with like what you're saying is you're saying like, some of them are freshmen. You want to
Oh
see how
yeah,
they grow. That's a very exciting thing. Like these are going to be names that we're going to continue to say. And as Acer was saying, like Ahmed El Sayed, Vika Shevchenko, all of those names, we've said them so many times that some of our listeners who may not have followed the fencing program before would be like, oh yeah, I know those names.
right. No, and that's the exciting part is really, especially being only having been here basically half a season, just to see how they're gravitating and accepting that maybe some of the direction or modification I put into the team. They're grasping it, they're latching on to it, they're accepting it, they're embracing it, and then how they're going to grow forward as they move into next year. And I've already had a number of the first years and second years talk about, they're excited about this season, but they're really looking forward to next season too, seeing where the team is going. So
Certainly.
it's the future's bright.
Sure. So, talking on that one a little bit, my question was going to be around like a 5-year goal that you have for the program. But based on what you said, what's your retirement goal? No, I'm just kidding. So within the next 5 years, as you talk about building the program, building success, what are some like the specific goals that you have for the program? Some of those achievable things that 5 years later you'd be able to be like, we made it. We got to where I wanted to see us get to.
So it's funny you say that because over that holiday break, I sat down and really kind of mapped out where I wanted to see us in 3 to 5 years. I had targets for this season, and we've hit a lot of those. At conferences, we hit a lot of the specific targets I was looking for. Where we might have missed one or two, we might have had one or two athletes sick that would have performed and put us right in target. But 5 years out, I have certain targets as far as kind of recruiting and team size for team growth and development. Uh, and I think we'll be on track there. I have targets as far as what I'd like to see at the NCAAs. Not so much initially, I want to build number of athletes attending NCAAs, and then you also start building those results from the athletes. I think you build expectation of, hey, we know we're going this year. Now let's make sure we turn out that performance. And the same thing with conferences, conference championships. We have Northwestern, OSU in the conferences. Those are both Big Ten teams, and they deliver those results. Well, our women's epee team or epee squad beat OSU this year. We have 2 freshmen on the team. Everyone's returning. Next year, yeah, do we want to take second and beat OSU? Absolutely, but we're looking for Northwestern now. We're looking to use that and grow forward. So, I think in 5 years, we're talking sending 4 to 6 people to the NCAAs. I think in 5 years, we're talking a squad size that's about 50% larger than we are now, and raising the caliber of that student athlete. The other thing is we've also had some incredible academic results, which a lot of times people may not talk about as much, but like our women's team had the highest GPA this last semester with a 3.79.
Wow.
I think that's a great standard to set. And I have academic standards that I want to see the team hit consistently year in, year out. 100% graduation rate is my target. I mean, at the end of the day, you don't have many professional fencers, if any, but everyone's going to graduate is the objective, and everyone's going to go off and have a career. Well, there's methods of success that we can teach on this team that will help them do that as they move forward in their life too. And those same methods of success that you apply to fencing will affect as far as your job, affect as home life. So I think I see a holistic approach to that too, and that because of those approaches, we'll be a successful team. We'll win.
Certainly. And you actually I think you already answered my next question. I was going to ask you around specifically with some of the athletes, like, beyond the competitive side of things and, tactical and, moves or like, things that you can do to boost your game, talking about some of the more, um, I guess what do you try to instill in your athletes? I know like on like Dan Campbell with the Lions, like we're going to be a team about grit. We're going to make sure that these are
Right.
gentlemen that are going to be great in the future. What are some of those things that when you sit down with your fencing team that you tell them, if nothing else, this is what we're going to be?
And to me, that talks about the character traits that we build the team around, and that is good character, good work ethic, and academic focus. I think if we have these components, I think from that we'll be very successful. And then I have a couple little, what I call them secret sauce, if you will. But a couple little elements that I think are extra that make all the difference. But it's really just having good character on the team. What does that mean? Having good academic focus. And I say academic focus, not necessarily grades, because I think an academic mindset is someone who's always learning. And it doesn't matter if you're in the classroom, it doesn't matter if you're in the fencing gym. You might be hanging out with friends, but you should still be trying to learn maybe a little bit about your friends. How can you be a better friend to them? How can you be a better example to people you're around? So that's what I consider academic focus. And then just good work ethic, you know. You gotta, even if it's a rough day, you still show up and you give it your all. And maybe your all today is much less than it was yesterday, but you're still giving your all that day. So
Awesome.
Absolutely. And I've seen some of that that character value that you were already talking about. I saw that Ludovica had a Instagram takeover on the stories, and you know, just being all around the teammates, I could already see that this team, they love each other, they hang out. So I think that's really good to see from these guys.
good, good. I'm glad to see that.
Yeah.
I always love it when I can hear people walk in and say, "Hey, I see this coming out in your
Yep.
team." That's a good sign.
Yeah,
That just means we're embracing the idea.
for sure. And we get that you're busy, coach. So this is going to be our last question to wrap it up. What kind of support do you want, would you most value from the Wayne State community to help this fencing program reach its full potential?
Um, it's easy to always sit here and have people talk about financial support. It's always an obvious one. I had a chance to talk to a couple of alumni in the past couple of weeks. I've stayed in touch with quite a few people I've known before, but I've had a chance to meet, I don't know, 10 or 15 alumni since I've been here. One of the things that started to come out the most that I think will be most beneficial for the future of the vision that I would like to see for the program is, as we work with our alumni and community, start getting mentorship programs for our student athletes. We have people that are going to graduate. They're going to get into some kind of job. And I know I was talking to one of our alumni, I think a week and a half ago, and he was actually, when I talked to him, he was having dinner with an older alumni who had mentored him into the work field he was doing now, and they'd stayed friends. I think that's probably the most valuable opportunity we have is, we have people that are medical doctors and people are studying to become doctors. That kind of mentorship is really the goal. And I've already had feedback from some of our alumni that they are excited about that idea. They're on board with it, and now it's just working forward and developing that. I think that'll be the most beneficial for the student athletes and the future that they have, and that's something that we can bring that's unique to the program. So,
Got it. It's good to hear. Do you have any follow up on that, Sangster?
No, I'm good. That's excellent stuff to hear. I like it.
great.
Yeah, I mean, kind of like wrapping up a lot of that,
Yeah.
like hearing that you have a plan around a lot of this, you have a vision for this. You mentioned, like, even when you were at a different place, a different school, you were still looking for the same, fencers that are here right now.
Mhm.
Seeing that they're here now, you get to come into it. You kind of know the team. You're building the team. You have a 5-year goal. You probably have goals by the time you retire for the team, which is going to be awesome as
Great.
well. But that, again, I mean, I know we've said it 3 times. It's music to our ears to hear that. Nothing against you and the team, but one of the athletic squads that some students, faculty, the community don't really think as much about. Hearing that there's still this kind of stuff going on in your world is fantastic.
Yeah, yeah. I'm looking forward to it. I'm looking forward to the future, and I really appreciate the being able to sit down with you guys and talk a little bit about the fencing team.
Absolutely. Well, there we have it, folks. Again, that's Andy Tulleners. Appreciate you joining us, the head coach of the Wayne State fencing program, and best of luck as Wayne State gets to host the NCAA regionals on Saturday, March 9th.
Great. Thank you.
Thank you.